And for 3.5 years, these two witnesses are preaching, whoever they may be. When they finish their testimony, and the Antichrist will make war against them and overcome them and kill them. And once the Antichrist kills them, now watch this, their bodies are going to lie dead in the street. Those from the peoples, tribes, and tongue and nations will see their dead bodies and not allow their bodies to be put in the graves. For 3.5 days, the entire world is going to see their bodies lie in the streets. How is that possible? From an organization in Atlanta called CNN. Anywhere, and just anything can happen in the world in a matter of seconds, CNN is broadcasting it on their network. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them. They're going to make merry. They're going to send gifts to one another because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. It's going to be party time and Christmas time again for 3.5 days because we are glad. See, this is the attitude. When we're gone, when these guys are dead, that's preached to them for 3.5 years, they're going to be glad to have a party because now they're gone. But God has other plans. Verse 11. Now after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God enters into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. They was resurrected, and you get to see the whoever's here gets to see the resurrection on CNN. All of a sudden, these guys, they've been having parties for 3.5 days, and all of a sudden they're watching them, man, they're glad these guys are dead, and just having a party time, and all of a sudden they stand up on their feet. Great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying, here's their rapture. Rapture number 7. They heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, come up here. They ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them when they left. I mean, this is God's masterpiece plan of showing that He is God during the tribulation period. So they did their job. The people had a party for 3.5 days, wouldn't bury him. 3.5 days later, the resurrection life comes back into them. They stand up on their feet, and God said, okay, now it's time for you to come on up here. Come on, you finished your work. Now come on up here. And then the Bible said they went back to heaven, and the cloud received them, and their enemies saw it happen. When does this happen? I believe verse 13 tells us exactly the time this will take place. And in the same hour, there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. In the earthquake, 7,000 people were killed. In the same hour when they was resurrected, the Bible said there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. And in the earthquake, 7,000 people were killed, and the rest were afraid and gave glory to the God of heaven. I believe this earthquake coincides with Jesus coming at the end of the tribulation period to fight the battle of Armageddon. I believe this will be the last rapture when Jesus comes. The reason I say this is because Revelation 19 is the description of the battle of Armageddon. That is not the next battle to take place. There is another one before the Battle of Armageddon, 7 years apart. The Battle of Armageddon is actually, when Jesus comes to fight the Battle of Armageddon, He is coming with 10,000s of His saints. Now, we're at a present time now that finally the gospel of the kingdom, now there's many gospels, but there's only one, the gospel, and that is the gospel of the kingdom of God. There's the gospel of healing, there's the gospel of prosperity, there's the gospel of deliverance, but the gospel of the kingdom. Now, the reason this has got to be the message before Jesus comes back is because the world is steeped in religion. And eventually, religion and the kingdom are going to butt heads. Two of the fastest growing religions in the world today, one of them is here in the United States. What is known, and we know it, as the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. There is one word that describes that in abbreviated form called the Mormons. They are one of the fastest growing religions in the world today. The other one is headquartered in the Middle East. It's called Islam. They're good people. They need the Lord just like anybody else does. And so eventually the gospel of the kingdom and religion is going to butt heads. And the kingdom's going to win. It is going to win. Now, like I said, we don't know. We know that the church age has been going for the last 2,000 years. We're even past that now. We're in 2009. How many of you are still surprised you're still here? You know, Y2K, we thought, man, we out here. When them computers start crashing, we gone. But here's 9 years later, and we still here. I really believe it's going to be up to the church when we finally realize that we're the ones who's going to preach the gospel of the kingdom. We're going to have to end up doing it. And until we get that, now, only God the Father knows the actual time that it's going to happen. But he leaves the season up to us. See, the reason God could not tell when he's going to send Jesus, he couldn't, because there's 2 days in existence at all times on this globe. It's already Thursday somewhere in the world right now. So Jesus could say, I'm going to come on Wednesday. Why? Because it'd be Thursday somewhere. So you can't tell that because of the time, span around this earth. Now, the next thing is, the Laodicean church was the last one, so that means we're going to have to be winding this thing up pretty quick. From my interpretation, my understanding of the scriptures, that this event will happen just before the tribulation period starts. Now when? Before. That's all I can say, before. Then we have, after the rapture takes place, then we have a 7-year period. Now, it may not, the day, if the rapture was happening tomorrow, that doesn't mean the tribulation period's going to start on Friday. There may be a time span there. Another term, it's called the time of Jacob's trouble. It's also called the day of the Lord. There's numerous names for this thing, but we know it particularly by the tribulation period. The tribulation period is divided into 2 segments, 3.5 years and 3.5 years. We know that because the Bible tells us the exact length of the tribulation period. Before the tribulation happens, there is another event. It is an event that we're not sure exactly when it's going to take place. It could happen prior to the beginning of the tribulation period, or it could happen just after. This event is the next major war this world is going to see. It is called the Battle of Gog and Magog. G-O-G, M-A-G-O-G. The description of that battle is found in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. Now understand, that battle is not the Battle of Armageddon. It is not. This is why it is called the Battle of Gog and Magog. Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39 describes that horrific war.